There we go. All right. So I'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. I think I've met most of you, but for those of you who have not, I'm Tim Kelly with Downtown Grand Rapids, Inc. Thanks for joining our DDA and Monroe North Tifa Tax Increment Finance Authority info meeting. If you're not familiar, this is a requirement of the PA 57 Act that we twice annually give an informational update on some of the work that we're doing. So as we're wrapping up our fiscal year, the FY21 year ends for us on June 30. Fiscal year 22 starts July 1. Just felt like it was a good time to check in on the work that we've been doing and what we have coming forward in the future. So Amanda, if you could go to the next slide, please. So starting out with some of our project highlights from the prior year, fair to say that despite the challenges that we all encountered over the past 12, 14, 15 months, we were able to deliver on some long-held community priorities, particularly in the placemaking realm. So among those would be the deployment of the Heartside restroom, so our loo down on Division and Weston. In addition, the first downtown skate park at 555 Monroe, and then also the redevelopment of the Van Andel Arena Plaza, which we did in partnership with our friends at the CAA. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we also continue progress toward goals of activation, both with new businesses, as well as public realm improvements. So that resulted from some of direct support from DDA and TIFA, including the 6 businesses with our retail innovation grants. We also delivered 30 new murals and public art installations over the past year, and also partnered with businesses on 23 downtown enhancement grants, all of which help to further enhance our downtown public spaces. Next slide. And then, this past year, a lot of what we evolved and shifted to was COVID relief, just recognizing some of the difficulty that our businesses were having, and also just in generating activity and vibrancy. And so we were able to extend lifelines through work on the social zones, which you see in the picture on the right there. And then also through creative events like the World of Winter and the Bridge GR, which really helped during times of what would normally be very active points during our year. This helped to just draw foot traffic, and what we heard over and over again from businesses was to extend a lifeline and keep them afloat during the challenging year. And also, particularly on the World of Winter, just real quick, just also wanted to highlight that furthered our goals around being a year-round active city. That's something that we've strived for a number of years, and just creating a 365-day-a-year vibrant city. So we're happy to deliver on that. And then lastly, just the continue to provide the day-to-day place management services that are required for an active and successful neighborhood. You see some of the stats there, but in the summary, our team, and in particular our ambassador and clean team, is out there every day of the year, making sure that the place and the neighborhood is being maintained and managed, and that we're putting our best foot forward for visitors, residents, and employees alike. Next slide. So with all of that in mind, and looking at some of the important construction projects that we have coming online in the coming months, to the tune of a little over $400 million, it's fair to say that despite some of the challenges we've all faced, there's a lot of momentum heading into the next year. In particular, the past week, we saw Spectrum break ground on their Center for Transformation and Innovation in Monroe North. The work at Perigo is underway. The Acrisure building should be opening up here in just a few weeks. And then the RDB Corp headquarters down on Monroe and Lyon will be opening up here in just should be a number of days. So exciting to see a lot of this work that's been going on for years come to fruition. Next slide. So pivoting then to what's happening in the year ahead. We just went through our budgeting process, as I mentioned at the outset. Some of the highlights you see here, and this is a combined, these are combined numbers for the DDA and TIFA. Overall, total budgeted expenditures, a little over $22 million. I'll point out that about 6.5 of that immediately goes toward debt service payment for the arena. And on that note, that this is our last year of debt service payment on the arena. So after 30 years, the DDA will have contributed a little under $140 million to that facility. So a milestone year for sure. But even with that accounting, we have a tremendous amount planned. 13.5 million total project expenditures. That translates to 97 programs, projects, and initiatives, the majority of which, and 100% of our discretionary funding, is related to the implementation of our master plan GR Forward. Next slide, please. I won't go into all 97 of those projects or programs. I just want to kind of give you some highlights and themes that we've talked about in the context of our budget. So first and foremost is looking at enhanced public spaces. And really, I think just building on some of the work that we've been doing for a number of years, but it was really underlined during some of the lockdowns for COVID, and just the importance of having accessible public spaces for folks to enjoy. And so for us, this year, that work will be focused on Lion Square, so where Lion Street dead ends there between the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel and the Convention Center. The DDA this morning just approved a little bit of additional design work to move that further into permitting, and the plan is to have that under construction this time next year. We also just recently released, as of Monday, an RFP for the connection down from the Belknap Hill and Medical Mile into Monroe North. We have, over the years, that's had a few different names. You may be most familiar with it as Switchback Park. But really what that does is help to provide better connections from some of our major employment and activity centers and near neighborhoods down to both Monroe North, but also to the river itself. And so that is a key project. Then also looking at Van Andel Arena. So we completed phase 1 of that work this year, looking to extend it now into the alley and creating a better connection between Fulton and all the way into the Studio Park Piazza. Next slide, please. As we're doing those projects and designing spaces, we want to be intentional about creating those spaces and opportunities that are welcome for everyone. Again, that has to do with the design of the space and incorporating universal design principles to create an active and inviting environment. But it also has to do with furthering programs to remove barriers of entry for entrepreneurs and investors. So we know and have been focused over the years on making downtown more welcoming, and to do that, we know that we need to continue to diversify business ownership. Sorry, my phone's ringing here. And while there's clearly more work to do, just since 2015, we've seen a rise in ground floor businesses owned by entrepreneurs of color and women, and overall we've increased the ownership from 6.5% to 11%. So that's clearly an improvement, but also signals there's clearly more work to do. Just in the past 14 months, we've seen 6 new businesses open, and so we have money in our budget this year to continue that important program to work towards that goal. Next slide, please. And finally, in sort of the big picture theme, really looking at an aggressive events and activation agenda. Just this morning, the DDA heard and approved funding for 3 events, 3 signature events, one being Art Prize, one being the World Water Festival, and one being Confluence. The last 2 of those are new festivals, and we expect to, throughout the year, both to help produce events, but also to support those. We think it's going to be key to helping to reignite and reactivate downtown, and so we are going to be using a lot of our resources and energy to help to promote and welcome those events to downtown. So if you're not tuned into our channels, make sure you do, because there's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the line. Next slide, please. So just a couple of quick highlights for work that's underway that maybe I haven't touched on yet, and that's happening in the short term. Starting with, again, activation. I mentioned the 3 events the DDA just approved. Those are a little bit later in the year. Those will be happening in September, but we have some events coming up in the next week or so. And I wanted to point out one being our Jam on the Grand, which is down at the 555 Monroe Skate Park. That's happening June 18 and 19. We are also currently planning with our friends at the Chamber of Commerce and some other partners what we're calling a welcome back event, which is really designed for employees and recognizing now that there is more activity in the with employees coming back into the office, trying to find a way to bring them into the social zones and support our businesses. So working with some of our community partners around promoting that, and scheduled to happen next Thursday, June 17th. So you should be seeing an announcement go out on that shortly. Next slide, please. In addition, on the welcoming side of things, we recently have completed another mural. So we continue to add to our public art in downtown. This one was done as part of our Women's Ways project series. That's a mural just off Fulton there, just to the south of Fulton in the Sanchez Alley, and you can kind of see it in the lower left there. And then we also last week cut the ribbon with a new downtown business. You see the mayor there. That is over on Jefferson Street, the 12th hour. So it's a new retail space. And then in addition, I think on the welcoming side, I also wanted to highlight, we continue to work with both the disability advocates at Kent County as well as Common Notice on universal design elements and incorporating those, excuse me, into our events and project planning. They've been working on a plan for us for the past year, and we'll be getting a report out on that work in the next few months. So a lot of work happening in that regard. Next slide is looking at public spaces. So I touched on Lion Square. We did just this morning also get approved some funding, our D-Day board did, for work with the Grand Rapids Public Museum, looking at their bigger project, which is a major facility overhaul and modernization. An element of that is the public edge there and the interface with the river. And so we just supported that work. We continue as well to work with community partners on the governance conversations and making sure that as these river assets come online, that it's clear who's maintaining and operating the facilities so that they are well cared for well into the future. And then, of course, a huge piece of this as well is working with Grand Rapids Whitewater. Did just get an update on that as well this morning, and are eager to see that work begin, I think, as most in the community are. The last slide, I believe, is just some bigger picture conversations that are continuing now and will continue into throughout the year and likely a little bit beyond. Looking at, of course, Market Avenue and the work that's being planned down there, those conversations happening with the city, the CAA, Grand Action, and other partners, and in trying to identify the appropriate role for the DDA and DJRI to play. So we are a part of those discussions. We are also just finishing up the planning exercise over on the west side, so just to the west of the freeway, south of Bridge Street, on those publicly owned dash lots. We've identified those for years as development sites and opportunities, and so thinking about the future of those in a disposition and/or development strategy. No imminent decisions need to be made there, but it is clearly an opportunity in the area that we see as the next phase of development for downtown. So those were just some of the highlights I wanted to offer. Again, thanks to all of our board members, both on the DDA and TIFA, for all of their volunteer time and energy. We have a lot going on, and we often ask a lot of you from just time and just being involved. And so we want to continue to thank you for your involvement. With that, I can take any questions, or can just have an open dialogue. How many people do we still have with us? 12.
A dozen and a half.
All right.
Oh, that was short.
Tim, that was a great update. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Appreciate your time. And yeah, if there are no questions or comments, that's no problem. That would be our informational meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
See you later.